And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Stripe Dev Chats. I'm your host, Cecil Phillip. And this is the show where we talk about all the amazing things that are happening around the world of Stripe and within the dev ecosystem in general. Now, in this particular episode, we have some very special guests that are going to be talking to us about Stripe apps. So I'm really excited to get into it. And so, why don't we start off with some quick introductions and we can learn a little bit about our guests and who exactly they are. Kenneth, why don't we start off with you? Why don't you tell folks a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Kenneth, PM here in the apps team. I really focused on building all the platform pieces and the developer experience, making it possible to build apps.
Awesome, amazing. Thank you so much for joining us. And Suk, friend, why don't you tell folks who you are?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Suk, and I am a full stack developer. And currently, I'm building a Stripe app called Retail, which helps people create stores with one click.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I have to say hello to everyone that's watching us right now. I know we have folks from all over the world that usually tune into our show. So if you don't mind, why don't you go ahead and drop in the comments? Let us know where you're watching from, city, state, country. We'll always love to know where folks who are building apps and using Stripe, where you're coming from. Me personally, I'm in Florida right now, and enjoying like the sunshine, but definitely would love to hear where some of you other folks are calling in from. Now, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to be talking about Stripe apps. And Stripe apps was launched not too long ago, but it just allows developers so many amazing capabilities. And Kenneth here, he's actually a PM that works on Stripe apps. So Kenneth, for folks that don't know what Stripe's apps are or what the product does, could you give us a really quick elevator pitch? Like what is this thing about?
Yeah, for sure. So from a developer perspective, Stripe apps is really all about making it possible for you as a developer to extend and customize Stripe. So with what we're providing with apps is that we're making it possible for you to kind of build new experiences on top of Stripe with the platform we provide. But we also give you the distribution option, so you can distribute apps to our marketplace, where you can reach like millions of customers, potential customers of your apps, but also privately, where you can build functionality just for your account or your business. So it is really it's really a way for you as a developer to really build deeper into Stripe. And as a user of Stripe, you can really go to our marketplace and you can discover a lot of great apps that provides a lot of interesting functionality that can really help you just run your business.
When I think about Stripe, I always think about integrating Stripe into my application, right? Like I'm building a retail app, or I'm building something to accept donations, right? I'm running on .NET or Ruby. I'm running in the cloud, right? But it's my app and it's my code, right? With Stripe apps, I feel like it's a little bit different, right? And I feel like it's also putting us in a different space. So not is it the case of I'm downloading a Stripe SDK necessarily into my application that I deploy, but instead I'm running something in Stripe itself, right? Is that what's happening here?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good way to kind of think about it. Like if you think about Stripe traditionally, it's been that you come to Stripe, you integrate with payments, billing, some of our products, and then you use our APIs, and you have a great developer experience to kind of get that job done. With what we're doing with apps and what we released last year is that we're essentially opening up Stripe to the rest of the world. So we're enabling any kind of developer to really be building on top of the platform we provide and build into Stripe. So that is experiences that with the platform we provide, that can be experiences in the dashboard with something we call UI extensions, where you can take the functionality that you want to provide to Stripe users and put that inside our dashboard. But it can also be functionality that runs in the background by just using an app backend, some webhook events, and the Stripe API. So think of this as a way that you can truly build on top of Stripe. You can kind of provide new experiences and reach all the millions of businesses that are using Stripe today.
So since Stripe apps is really like an extension to the dashboard from a UI perspective, I'm really curious, like what are some of the use cases, like practical use cases for apps that I could build using this type of technology?
We see a bunch of different use cases. I would say there's a few use cases and categories on very broad strokes. I would say we're seeing data syncing integrations, that is syncing Stripe data with another system. We are seeing a range of applications that are bringing kind of workflows inside of the Stripe dashboard. So taking functionality from another kind of system, bringing that into Stripe. So you really have that context-free easy, convenient experience. And then we are also seeing the last category that we call private apps. The private apps is really a way that you can use the exact same platform primitives. You can build experiences just for yourself. So a really common case here is that I'm using Stripe to operate my business. Maybe I'm using billing to do my SaaS, but I also have this internal kind of customer system. And every time I look up a customer, I want to pull that data too. So with a
Right.
private app, you can kind of integrate your internal systems much closer together with Stripe. Or if there's a piece of functionality that you really need that Stripe doesn't provide today, you can actually go out and build that for yourself.
Okay, so it's almost like Stripe apps again. Like I'm actually extending Stripe with my particular use case, right? Because again, it's a whole
Exactly.
dashboard UI focused type of experience, and so I'm guessing, like you said, stuff like my customer data and my products and my webhooks, right? Like I can tap into all of those types of things, and now like the compute power, like the running of the actual app, the hosting of it, actually happens on Stripe itself. Again, versus me publishing it to the cloud or my data center or something like that. Instead, like it lives in that space. Yeah.
Yeah, at this point in time, when you're building an app and you're building an app with what we call a UI extension that runs in the dashboard, we're doing all the hosting, etc. for you. If you build an app that has what we call an app backend that is consuming webhooks and the Stripe API, right now you can use any kind of cloud provider you provide. We are not providing the compute for you, and that's really like we believe that you should be able to leverage any kind of cloud provider and any kind of data deployment model that you want.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm thinking, Stripe Apps was released last year, and I'm sure between then and now, like tons of, customers have been onboarded, new features have been released. Do you have any particular customers or Stripe apps that you want us to highlight? Like any ones that you think come to mind that are like really good examples of things that you could do with Stripe apps?
Yeah, like let me based on like the three categories here, like data streaming, bringing workflows into Stripe, and new private apps. Let me share my screen here
Yeah, sure.
and show you like a few examples from our marketplace.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and do that. And then while you get your screen up, like I definitely want to say for everyone that's watching, feel free to go ahead and drop your questions inside of the chat. I see we have folks from like all over the place: India, Los Angeles, Canada, Denmark, Sao Paulo, Brazil, Tampa, Florida. Shout out to Tampa. Again, really appreciate all y'all being here. Go ahead and drop in your questions, and we'll try to get to them as we can. Definitely don't wait to the end because I don't want to miss anyone's questions by accident. Okay, so Kenneth, we have your screen up now. Like, what do you want to show us?
Yeah, like so you can see I've kind of put a few tabs here of example apps. The first app here is an example of data synchronization. So this is actually like an integration that is syncing the Stripe data with QuickBooks to do accounting, and this has kind of been built by a somewhat smaller company that is building this experience, and it's really solved a really burning problem. So this is actually one of our most popular apps at this time. So to me, this really just emphasizes the opportunity that if you go out and help some of the businesses that are using Stripe, we really have a big opportunity to kind of build functionality that all our users need. And the other apps are kind of prepped here is kind of, I would say, is in the analytics and insights category. So we have ChartMogul that has been building an app that is pulling the data first and foremost for Stripe, but also providing analytics, MRR insights, etc., directly inside the Stripe dashboard. You can look up a particular customer, you can see the revenues. In the kind of similar category, we also have Barometrics that's providing a very similar experience where you can see the customer insights, you can see the product insights, etc. So really just bringing that like deep integration between these amazing analytics tools and insight platforms directly inside Stripe. But we have also seen apps like MailChimp that is syncing data, but also providing analytics and the capability for you to trigger marketing campaigns directly from Stripe in the dashboard. So this is really just to highlight that we are kind of going beyond the traditional accounting and insights kind of categories of experiences that people have built, and MailChimp is also largely popular. And another example here is accounting. Is that we all run a business, we all need to do accounting. So Bench has been building a wonderful experience. You can really show where you are with your revenue and then your accounting. And the last kind of app I want to highlight here, like, first of all, I'll say that we have more than 80 apps in the marketplace. We're seeing a lot of traction and a lot of new apps being published every single week. So this is just like a small highlight. You should definitely go and check out all the apps that are out there. But this particular app is called Payment Links Query Add-on, which is really an app that is building upon Stripe payment links and adding new functionality to payment links. And in this particular example, this particular app makes it possible to add a few more query strings to the URLs. There's even like functionality to do like a QR code, etc. And to me, this is really emphasizes the opportunity and what you can do as a developer. You can build whole new kind of integrations, but you can also build new experiences that really extend Stripe functionality with that particular feature that you hear users really want, or maybe it's just something you need for just yourself.
Got it. That sounds amazing. And so now, Suk, I know that you yourself have built a Stripe app. And I really want to get into talking about like what are some of the things that you did and what your user experience is like. But one more question I definitely want to make sure I ask Kenneth. So since Stripe Apps was launched, again, a little bit sometime last year, since then, like what do you think are some of the features that you've launched, within these past couple of months that you really want to highlight? I'll make sure people pay attention to.
So top of mind here, like we've been super busy since we launched like apps last May. And really, the number one emphasis here has been that we're running a public beta, and we've been really busy just iterating on apps and listening to all the feedback. So on our GitHub issue tracker, we have closed more than 400 issues. And just for context here, we have like a GitHub repository. We're running full and open issue tracking for all of apps. Okay. So if you have any issues, you have feedback, if there's features or primitives you would like to see, open an issue and GitHub, and we're giving it a look for sure. And like what has really happened since we launched? First of all, apps is now available to all Stripe users around the world. And secondly, we just really open up the marketplace now. So you as a developer, you can go out and build an app, and now you can publish it to the marketplace, go through our app review program, and you can distribute that app to millions of businesses around the world. So this is something that we just did relatively recently, and this is really just emphasizing the big opportunity that there is for you to kind of solve a problem, get the distribution, and get in front of millions of customers. As I mentioned before, like our marketplace has more than doubled in inventory since we launched. We have now 80 plus apps, and new apps being released every single week. And in terms of the capabilities, I think that there's three highlights. We ship something we call external testing, which is really a way for you as a developer to really test your apps with users before you submit to the marketplace. Think of this as kind of like test flight if you've ever been building an iOS app, where you can kind of do preview builds, etc. We're calling these test versions. You can do a test version of an app. And we've also been working on making it much easier to do user onboarding. So we've been adding onboarding views and a lot of primitives there, so you can really build a great onboarding experience. And then we also been working on just a range of like improvements to our developer experience. So the way you go about and build an app today is you're using the Stripe CLI, Stripe Apps Crate, and you have a great developer experience. But we've also been working on things like multi-environment support. We all know when you're building an app, and you're building in local versus staging versus production, you need various configs, etc. So we've kind of been making that much easier for you to do as a developer. Again, a common feedback item since we launched. And then generally, like we are in public beta, so we've just been really focused on landing a lot of range of improvements, stability fixes, etc., and just being eager to hear all of your feedback.
Yeah, as you've been talking about it, the parallels that I'm kind of drawing in my head are like marketplaces for mobile apps, right? Like I go on a store and I want to download app X on my Android device, on my tablet, whatever the case is. And so not only can I build private apps with Stripe apps, I can also build public apps too, which I think gives developers like a range of options to not only express their creativity, but now you also gives them like another stream for them to, be able to like make revenue, which I think is an interesting perspective that we definitely want to explore. Yeah, and sure. I feel like that's an option that our friend Suk here, who again, someone has built an amazing Stripe app, and I'm not just saying it because he's here, I say this behind his back too, who's built an amazing Stripe app that we'd love to hear about. So Suk, why don't we switch over to you? I'd love to hear, just super quick, like what made you decide to get involved in Stripe apps and like start working with it and create the project that you did?
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, I'm I probably am the biggest proponent of Stripe apps. When it came out, I saw the sessions that happened, and I was like, "This is it. This is great." What got me excited was specifically that Stripe has done the most of the bulk work of creating a SaaS business. I come from a traditional SaaS background where you would have to build a full out front end, the back end, and then figure out marketing. But all that is kind of baked into Stripe apps where, like Kenneth said, the distribution part is already done through the app marketplace. For the front end, there's UI components that are well documented, tested. All you have to do is fill in the functionality in the middle that all business owners sort of can use and will find useful in the first place. So as a developer, your job is pretty easy, which is just write code, which is kind of what we want to do in the first place anyways. So that's what got me excited, is I can just write code, and hopefully that if people find it good, they can pay for it. It was amazing.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Retail, which is the app that you built that runs on Stripe apps?
Yeah. So Retail is a one-click store creator. So if you want to sell stuff online, you can just click on Create Store, and it will pop up a full branded experience where you can buy and sell items, and then promote it with your customers or promote it with your social media audience. The way I built it is over the pandemic, I was seeing a lot of my friends sort of creating small stores. They were selling cupcakes, maybe dog tags, and they were accepting payments through PayPal. Or they were in the process of making a Shopify store, but they weren't really happy with it. Talking to them a little bit more, the reason for that was, Shopify is for if you have a lot of inventory and you want to build an e-commerce behemoth, but it's not for someone that's trying to make their first $100 online, right? They just have something and they're like, I just want to sell it and see if someone will pay $10. Those kind of cases pop up over and over again. And when I saw a Stripe Apps announcement, everything clicked in my head, because I knew the payment gateway and all those things were already solved by Stripe Apps. All I needed to do was build the front end, like a store experience where the checkout is provided by Stripe itself. And that's exactly what I did. I pulled out some Next.js and Vercel, put out a quick MVP, got a few people to try it out, and it worked. So yeah, that's how I got started.
All right, so why don't we really quickly switch over to your screen? Maybe you could show us a little bit about like what Retail looks like, and then and as we're having that conversation, I'd definitely love to ask you some questions about how do you build it and what languages you used, and like I want to really get into like the technicality of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So on my screen right now.
Okay, so we're gonna pull up your screen. There we go.
Yeah. So this is the Stripe dashboard, and on the right-hand side is where I have the Retail store already installed. So from the Stripe marketplace, and so this sample build is for Martha, who's selling cookies. And what I have here is in the products, I have two type of cookies she's selling. One is macadamia nuts, which is a bit more expensive than the chocolate chip one. I think if there's something else in the macadamia nut, but so there's two of them. One is selling for $15, one is for $8. And all she has to do if she wants to sell these is click on Create Store. And what this is going to do is create a store, add these products in there, and they're fully, you can check them out as a customer. So if I just go view my Retail store, boop, there you go. That's your store created now. I can do add to cart, and here you go. I have 3 items, let's say. I can check out, and this will pull up the order. I can fill it out. And this order and the money itself will go straight into Martha's account, which is great. So she just is able to, sell her stuff immediately without actually having to mess around with themes, code, none of that.
Okay, so my first question to you now, just looking at this example. So let's say I'm selling Cecil's cookies because I like cookies too. If I'm selling Cecil's cookies and I want to be able to have a store like Martha, is the only thing I have to do just install the Retail app? Like, is that whole experience you showed, like that whole full screen experience you showed, also running on Stripe apps, or is it just like this part that's showing in the dashboard on the right side?
Just this part on the right side on the dashboard is running in Stripe apps.
Got it.
The store itself, this one,
Mm-hmm.
is
so this part is Stripe
Yeah,
checkout,
the
right?
checkout.
Like it looks like you plug into that.
Yeah, the checkout is Stripe apps, is Stripe checkout.
Okay.
But the store itself here, this is a Next.js build.
Got it. Okay, so again, just so folks can like plug those pieces together. So you have a Next.js app running somewhere on some hosting provider, right? You have like that Stripe app integration that's in the dashboard, and essentially all you really did when you hit that button is that you're just redirecting folks over to your app. But then your app itself is still integrated to Stripe, right? You're using all those other things like different payment methods and using Stripe hosted checkout and obviously Stripe webhooks and stuff like that, right? Like all of that is plugged into this ecosystem.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can pull up an example as well. So here is like the live code that's running. And by the way, it's a Next.js app. So you'll see the classic pattern over here in the pages where the store itself is just an index.txx. So it's underscore stores subdomain, and then the index, which is the store itself. The way this works is anyone that is coming into, let's say, Martha.retail. They get redirected to something called retail store /_stores/Martha. And then that's so Next.js, what it does is it converts this URL into this. And then all it does is it loads up this index.tsx file, which has the code for this screen, which is just pull in the information from the database, which is the product information on the title, the images, the amounts, and then just render them on the screen. It's all it's doing. And the way this part works is Next has got this great functionality, which is a middleware here. This runs before every single request. So any request that's coming into the app, before it's resolved, it goes through this middleware. And you can see this code right here mimics the pattern that I'm showing here. Retail.stores /_stores/ the subdomain. So this is the current host, and then this is the path name, which gets resolved into this index file, and then this is the only file that actually renders out. For the checkout screen, it's just an easy integration with the Stripe checkout, and that's a traditional way you would do a Stripe checkout with the creating a session ID and then redirecting the person to there.
Got it. All right. So before you go on, really quick, I want to make sure that we start addressing some of the questions that are popping up in the chat.
Sure.
And our friend here, Tim Manning, Tim's coming in from YouTube, and he's asking, are these apps only for web, or does it cater to in-app purchase functionality? So I feel like I have an answer, but like I let one of the two of you folks jump in and answer that for us.
By the way, this is a question that I want to get answered as well, so I'll kick it over to Kenneth for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So generally, we think about Stripe apps at a very high level. You can leverage our UI components. We're providing you a UI component, etc. When apps, when we have an app that is using a UI extension that runs inside the dashboard, it renders for the web because the dashboard is running inside your browser. But there's nothing from a technology perspective that is really limiting us and limiting how Stripe apps work. That you can imagine Stripe apps going to other places in the future, different technology stacks, etc. So really like our UI extensibility model, I think probably a fair comparison would probably think of it more as a React Native than you getting a Tailwind CSS and a bunch of UI components. You're really using a little abstraction that we kind of been putting in place. But to answer the question, for now, apps that use UI extension functionality runs inside the dashboard, and you can also build the apps that runs in the background that doesn't have any UI.
Awesome. So Tim, hopefully that answered your question. If not, go ahead and leave some more comments in the chat, and we'll try and get to that really quick. So one more question before we go on, and Kenneth, I'm going to guess this is another question for you as well. Matt's coming in from YouTube as well, is asking, what is the revenue share percentage on apps for creators /Stripe?
Sure, happy to talk about that. Today, we don't have any revenue share. So you can build apps for Stripe, and you can monetize in the ways that you want to. So that we really we want to encourage as an open ecosystem as possible, and for you to kind of be building experiences over time, there's probably things we can do here to really help you monetize much easier, etc. But for now, we're not providing anything specific to Stripe apps for monetization. You can use checkout, you can use all these other great tools out there that Stripe already provides to make it super easy for you to monetize. But we don't have like a rev share model like in other marketplaces, etc.
Okay. Okay, great. So Matt, hopefully that answered your question. So Suk, let's go back to your screen and continue where you were talking about. And again, for folks, if you have more questions, go ahead and feel free to drop them in. I will try to answer them as soon as we can. All right, Suk. So you were showing us your screen's up. You were showing us Martha's cookies.
Yeah. And so this is the full sort of the store where you can buy stuff from. The other thing you can also do is there's app settings. So there's settings related to the store itself that you can customize here. I can customize the name. So I'm going to say Martha's Cookie Store. I can also change the name. Maybe I want to go full red. And then there's stuff you can also attach your custom domain. So right now it generates a random characters for your store name, but you probably want to have something a little bit better. So you can add your custom domain here in the settings as well. But the way this sort of interacts, so this is the great thing about this is Stripe apps, the way it interacts with the web front end. So if I just go save settings and then reload this page, so we can see the title updated, the colors updated as well. Yeah. So the great functionality is that the business owner only has to come in here and then make the changes, and then it's already deployed. And I think that's where the real power of Stripe apps is. If you combine the UI extensions plus a front end that you can deploy, and you can build some really cool solutions like this one here.
What I'd love for you to dive into a little bit is, so obviously we know where you're using Stripe apps. What are some of the Stripe APIs that you're calling to enable this feature? Because as you're even showing that particular one where you're even just changing the color, I'm guessing you're using some level of metadata or some other type of key value information to be able to do that? Yeah.
Yeah. So this one specifically, when you save the data here, it actually saves into my database, which these pages pull from. But the product information itself is actually coming from, so this product's information it is actually coming from the Stripe Prices API. So to see that, if I just go in here and then edit this product, I say this is, box of 6. We can only limit to 6, let's say. And I save this product. I open it up. And we can automatically see that now the customer's made a change. And the way we detect that is we see what's saved in the database and what Stripe's API is reporting back, which is a Stripe Prices API, which actually sends you back the price information, which also has the title, description, and images as well. So we do a comparison between the two of them, figure out what the changes are. And in this case, there is a change because if I just reload the page here, it's not gonna show the box of 6. But if I go and then refresh products, what this will do is call the prices endpoint, grab all the product data, save it into a database, and then come in here. And if I reload, there's a box of 6 coming through. And this applies to the prices, so the $15, the images themselves as well, the description, and on all those kind of parameters.
Got it. Okay. So what we've done so far, in terms of like the actual code itself, like we've seen, a little bit of that Next.js code, and you've explained to us how like that DNS mapping kind of happens from like customer to like your online store. I'd definitely love to see a little bit more of the code that actually powers like that Stripe app view. You know what I mean? Because again, from my understanding, it's a little bit of like a React-ish type syntax, right? Like, so for folks who are familiar with React.js, they should be somewhat familiar in using this, right? So it's that familiar pattern of having components and use effects and like those types of things, right? So could we see a little bit of what that looks like specifically for the Stripe apps sections?
Yeah. So in here I have my Stripe app. So this is a different repository, and you can see I have in Stripe apps it's called views, right? So each view is mapped to each screen. So my home overview screen, which is this one here, let me just expand this, close this off. So home, here we go. So my home screen, it's a pretty big screen, but it's using familiar things that you would know from set states. So use state here to hide and show some stuff. There is loading that's happening. So whenever there's a loading screen that's popping up, we're turning sort of this view, which has a spinner, the loading spinner here, and then showing some text there as well. And all this is stuff, these components, the context view, the box, the spinners, this is, by the way, coming from the Stripe app's own library of components. So all I'm doing is importing the Stripe UI extension SDK, and then it already has things like the common components that you need: a button, a box, icon, image. So all these things, I haven't created custom components myself, but I'm just using the box of patterns that are already provided by Stripe and just bringing them into the app itself, and then customizing just a little bit of to show different messages, different states as well. But yeah, if you're working, this is exactly like you would work in React, the same pattern. It's just there's a little bit of a primer on specifically how Stripe apps sets things up. One of the big ones is that there's a Stripe app JSON file which maps your screen. So home overview is the screen, and stripe.dashboard.home overview, that's where it's going to be showing. So if I pull up this viewport, it's going to render this component. That's the only, I think, the difference between building for React and building for Stripe apps, but most of the things should be pretty familiar.
Okay, so then if I am used to, like, again, that component model type of, way of building apps, then like it should be familiar, or not so much so a deep learning curve for me to start building Stripe apps. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think if you're a React developer and you've done some projects, this should be pretty straightforward.
All right. And then, when I think about React, right, and, I'm not a React developer. I'm not going to lie. I'm not so much of a JavaScript person, but, I think about NPM packages, and I think about like all these other, extensions and packages and stuff like that I might want to bring into my project to enhance like that functionality of it. Is there like a limitation of me like installing third-party NPM packages, or can I just treat it like any other app? Just other than that, is just hosted in Stripe?
Yeah, no, it's like a common React project that you can install any sort of packages into. So you can see in my repository here for package.json, I have a few different things that are installed. One of the big ones is this React query, which helps me make a call from my Stripe front end over to my back end. So this helps with that, and then does caching and all those kind of things. And there's a couple of more things installed, but yeah, there's the unique name generator, which actually helps me generate a little random string of characters for when a new store is created. But there's no limitations on what packages I can install. Anything I can do in React apps, I can do over here as well.
All right, great. Let's switch back over to YouTube. So I'm going to take your screen off for a second. We do have some more questions that are popping in for folks. So this one's coming in from, this is funny, the soothing sounds of symphony over on YouTube. This person's asking, can you use retail with subscription-based products?
That's a great question. So right now it only does one-time products, but I have one update in place right now that I'm testing through. It's just doing beta testing right now for subscription-based products, and to allow a subscription and multi-price product as well. So like, let's say you have a t-shirt and you want to do one t-shirt is a little bit green, one shirt's purple. Instead of making separate products, you want to do one product itself. So those things that are pretty common, that kind of model is pretty common within Stripe, but retail doesn't support. So those are things that are coming pretty soon.
Gotcha. And then one more question, Kenneth, I think this is probably more along your line of the world. From Manuel, coming in from YouTube, is asking, is this available outside of the United States?
Yes. Stripe apps are available globally. So both you as a user of Stripe, you can go to marketplace.stripe.com, and you can see all the apps that's been published, and you can find all the integrations and experiences that you need to run your business. But also as a developer, you can be sitting anywhere in the world and you can be building for Stripe. and you can upload apps, and you can get going.
Awesome. So again, Manuel, hopefully that answers your question. Again, anyone else with questions, like I said before, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll try to get them as soon as possible. Now, Suk, for you, as a person that obviously is not only just building Stripe apps for fun and pleasure, but like you obviously have like a real world app that's out in the marketplace and you're trying to, make money off of it, right? What would you say are some of the learnings that you had from building and hosting your Stripe apps? Like, what are some of the good things and some of the bad things you did? And any type of advice you'd want to give someone that wants to get started with Stripe apps today?
Yeah, absolutely. One, I think the thing I misunderstood or I took very lightly is the fact that it's the target customer of Stripe is a business owner. It's a B2B app that you can build, right? So these folks are running a business. Either they're looking to optimize their current workflow or trying to basically make more revenue somehow. And if you can come in and using code, come in and help them make, let's say, $100 more per month, they're more than happy to pay you $10 a month. It's an easy equation. It's an easy sell. $100 for $10. Going for those kind of use cases and figuring out what kind of problems business owners are running into and crafting your solution around that is probably the best advice that I can give. So I think you should just, if you're looking to like come up with ideas, just talk to someone who's already accepting payments through Stripe. And there are quite a lot of people and a huge range of customers, everyone from brick and mortar stores to someone running a charity to someone running a SaaS business. All of them use Stripe. So you can find really good small problems that they haven't found a solution to that you can come in and build something for.
Nice. One thing I want to add to that really quick, and I'm going to pop up our Discord channel at the bottom. If you join our Stripe Discord channel, and this is our official Discord, I think this is always a great place to come in and talk to other folks that are building things with Stripe, but not only just to, just come and hang out, but it's a great place to, test out your ideas. Like ask folks what they think about this, try out new features, get some feedback, have them come to your GitHub repo and submit issues and things of that nature, right? Again, like for me, like the developer experience is all about the community at the end of the day, right? Like you're building software for the rest of us, right? Like for the community and for other users. So why not ask those other folks for feedback? So I definitely want to recommend or suggest to folks that definitely come over to our Discord channel. And then like Kenneth mentioned earlier, we also have like that Stripe apps GitHub repo. Definitely feel free to come over and submit issues and things of that nature if you have them. All right, so the next thing I want to do, so Suk, you told us a little bit about obviously your experience. Definitely appreciate that. Kenneth, I want to switch back to you now. So we've learned about, obviously what Stripe apps are, what we can do with them. We've seen examples. We've talked about different customers and so on and so forth. I definitely would love to switch over and talk a little bit about like the roadmap. What are some of the things that we can expect, within soon, right? Some of the things that y'all are planning for apps.
Yeah, like that's the fun thing about roadmap is always on what time frame, right?
Yeah.
So first and foremost, we in public beta. We are working hard on listening to all your feedback. So again, really just if your feedback issues, please check the GitHub, open an issue. We hear, we're listening, and we really just we're really excited to kind of see what you all are building. But a few highlights in terms of like what we're working on. A very common theme of what we have heard since we launched Stripe apps has really been around authentication and installation. So right now we are working on a better way to do installation of apps across various surfaces. So what does that mean? In essence, it basically means that we are working on adding OAuth support to Stripe apps. So you can have a more standardized way you can install apps, but also in particular making it easier for you to install apps outside of our marketplace. If you're starting inside your kind of tool, you want to guide a user to install an app on Stripe and then go back to your kind of app, we're working on making that easier. And as a part of that, we also working on making it easier for you to migrate if your existing Connect extensions. That's kind of our legacy extensibility model we had for Stripe. So a part of that is really to make it easier for you to migrate, and also just to make app installation in general much easier. So just a shameless plug here. If that's something you need, and we're already building an app, I would love to talk to you to really just make sure that we're building the right thing. So feel free to hit me up on Twitter, in the comments, my email, auchenberg@stripe.com, and then we can chat. The second piece we are working on right now is also around analytics and insights. So a common ask has been, hey, now I built my app. Who's using the app? How often are they using the app, etc. So we're working on enabling developers to have access to much better insights around how the app is used, who the users are, but also information from the marketplace listing. How many views do I have? How my conversions, etc. So we really like just baking that into apps itself. Today, you have to add your own kind of analytics to your app to track all that behavior. We will be providing a few things out of the box with apps based on how apps are used. And really like the third kind of bucket of work that we are focused on is that since we have launched, we have learned a lot about what kind of experiences our users want, but also what kind of experiences developers want to build. And we have seen this theme around data-focused apps. There's really synchronizing data between Stripe and other systems, data in, data out, etc. And this is really a category of experiences that doesn't really extend the Stripe dashboard. They might leverage settings, onboarding, but they really don't bring like a workflow inside the dashboard. So we are working right now to make it much easier to build these kind of headless experiences that doesn't have any UI. But also, like, what does it mean for you as a Stripe user to kind of use apps that doesn't show up in dashboard? So overall, we are working on a range of improvements that can kind of make data-focused experiences really, really great on Stripe too.
Awesome. So we got we actually got a bunch of questions that are popping up now inside of our chat. I'm going to pull up one from ARM. Other than the monetary data, can I say more data about each of my clients, such as their specific interests, and maintain such data in Stripe? This sounds like user preference data, right? Like, is there like a metadata API of some sort that folks can make use of, key value store type situation, I'm guessing, to store like user preferences and that type of thing?
Yeah, so today, when you're using the Stripe API in general, whether you're building a Stripe app or you're building a direct integration with Stripe, we have the metadata functionality that enables you to add extra key value pairs in any kind of object. We also provide an API that we call the secret store that is particular for app developers. If you are doing authentication to a third-party system, you need to store like sensitive material, you can use the secret store to store those keys. But in this particular example, if you're building an app that wants to extend itself on the customer page, and you want to add like 5 extra fields and have a very specific experience where you want to store this data, you can use metadata today to store those extra fields directly on the customer object. And then that way you don't need to spin up an extra database, etc. You can just use the Stripe API.
Yeah. And I guess the question always comes down, like, where do I store my data, in my database or in Stripe? And I think just like, probably not the answer you want to hear, but it depends, right? It depends on the type of your app you're building, how your workflow is, it depends. But you do have the option, kind of like Ken mentioned, to either store them in Stripe, or you can store them in your own database and do a little bit what Suk did, right? And query his database from a Stripe app. And then now you can have those, those data points synced between the app that's inside of Stripe and your app that runs outside of Stripe as well. All right, another question coming in again from YouTube. Suk, I think this is more for you. Since Stripe does not have a system to charge for apps, how does Suk get access to the app behind the paywall? So your app isn't behind a paywall, is it?
No, that's a great question. There isn't a monetization right now, but that is exactly what I'm working on right now. So I can share kind of how I'm thinking about doing it. The way this would work is you would have to first have an OAuth 2 system built in. So users can actually log in to their accounts outside of Stripe apps. Then they would buy a subscription there, and that would be used with the secret store, like Ken mentioned, inside the app to figure out if the payment plan is active and if they have access to the app. I actually just got finished building that out. I think I put it on Twitter a couple days ago that this was a hard technical problem, mainly because all the libraries that help you build an OAuth 2 server are ancient. They're about like 5-6 years old. So one of the things I'm going to do this week is clean up the sample I created out of like cobbling together multiple projects, and then put that out, and hopefully yourself, Rahul, or someone else that needs to be building those OAuth 2 mechanisms, they can just copy, paste, and just go for it. But the answer right now is an OAuth 2 mechanism, which then feeds into a Stripe subscription, and then I use secret store inside the Stripe app to check if the person is paid or not. But it doesn't do monetization right now. It's coming.
Yeah, I think that'd be a great use case if, as I build my Stripe app and I want to build like a retail focused scenario like this, that now I have the ability to, I don't know, drop a component and then have the user log in. And then now there's some way that I can sync between here's the user in Stripe and here's the user in my app, wherever my app is. And I know for folks that build a lot of Stripe integrations, like there's tons of different packages or Ruby gems or, whatever your framework is, right? Like there's tons of options in the world that allows us to do that if you're looking for that particular type of scenario. So definitely make sure you take a look out for that. Another question coming in from Luis Perez. Luis is asking, for this type of metadata, so I guess this goes back to the question that was asked a little bit earlier, will you be able to run big reports on them?
I assume that this question is for me.
I'm going to guess so.
So with metadata today, I don't know what's meant with big reports in this context, but as you're pulling reports from Stripe, you can also choose to include that metadata. So today we have customers in general using Stripe where they're doing revenue recognition and other kind of scenarios where they need to store specific customer identifiers on a per transaction kind of basis. So yes, in general, like it really depends on the specifics here. But if you store metadata with Stripe, you can leverage that, or you can access that metadata via the Stripe APIs. You can use our search API to find objects you have stored with specific keys, and it was also integrated into our reporting APIs.
Yeah, I think a good call out rule also we have this product or service, I guess, called Stripe Data Pipeline, and we never talk about it as much as we should probably. But for Stripe Data Pipeline, essentially, is not specifically for Stripe apps, but is for your Stripe accounts in general, and then you can use that to export data to your data warehouse of choice for like big data analytics and querying and things of that nature. I think today we support AWS Redshift. I'm sorry, whatever the AWS product is called. And then we also support Snowflake as well. So again, for customers that have big data, right? Like a lot of data, and you want to be able to export it, like definitely recommend that you take a look at Stripe Data Pipeline as an option for running big queries against your stuff. All right, one more question before we, get the show back on the road. This one coming from Z in YouTube. Can Stripe apps work with something like Stripe Connect? Kenneth, this is a Kenneth question again.
Fantastic. The question here is yes, but because it depends on how you're using Stripe Connect today. If you're using Stripe Connect and you're using what we call Stripe Connect Standard, where your users of your Connect platform have access to the dashboard, your users can go to the marketplace today, they can install apps, and they can use apps directly on their accounts. If you are a Connect user where your users don't have access to the dashboard, we don't have the same availability of apps because naturally a lot of the apps we have in our marketplace today are expressing themselves in the dashboard. But if you're using Standard today, then your users, they can go to the marketplace, it's fully available, etc., and they can go and install apps and get going.
Awesome. So Z, hopefully that answers your question. And again, if anyone else has more questions, go ahead and feel free to drop them in the chats. All right, so folks, we've heard a lot about Stripe apps, right? Like we've seen code, we've talked about the roadmap. I want to move forward and start talking about what are some of the things that I can do as a developer if I want to get started, right? Because I've heard all the things now. I've seen the demo, I've seen retail, I know that I can publish app to like a marketplace, right? If I want to get started today, like what are some of the learning resources that are available for me as a developer, right? To get started, assuming I know like, the React stuff and JavaScript already, of course, but, assuming that that's where I'm starting, what can I do to get started with Stripe apps today?
The easiest place to get going is really to go to our documentation. That is stripe.com/docs /stripe-apps, where we have like a great documentation on how you get started building experiences for Stripe. We have everything from how you get going, from your hello world to how you publish your app, what kind of requirements are when you publish and you want to go through app review, etc. But I also want to highlight again our GitHub, because if you go to our GitHub, we also have a range of examples. Really like, as developers, we all love having examples. That's code to write, right? So we've kind of been building a lot of skeleton apps that you can easily just pull down, and you have a boilerplate for you to get rolling.
Another resource that I really found helpful when I was building is the Figma file that's available for Stripe apps. So if you go on figma.com and search up Stripe apps, there's a Figma file that includes all the UI components. Plus, I think there's 5 samples of like different screens, and there's a sign-in screen, there's a process screen, there's a sign-out screen. So it really helps like visually see what the app is going to look like. And then what I did was I started replacing some of the components in the file to sort of see what my app would look like. I think that's a great way of like mocking up what your vision is, and just having customers or people that you would eventually be selling to show them, oh, this is what I'm thinking of building. What do you think about it? So the Figma file, I would definitely suggest that as well.
Awesome. And then Suk, don't you have some stuff in the works about Stripe apps? Anything you want to talk about there in terms of folks learning about how this stuff, how this stuff works?
Yeah. So I've been going in and out of the documentation for Stripe apps for about 6 or 7 months. And I'm putting together sort of a course that goes from ideation all the way to building to publishing your own Stripe app as well. It's not finished right now. You can only pre-order it, but that would be a good resource as well, because I pack everything into one place.
Awesome. Well, I'll say this, shameless plug. If anytime you want someone to maybe, dog food your course or try it out, definitely let me know. I'll be more than happy to try that out for you. I'm sure Kenneth will as well. So definitely let us know whenever you want us to do that. And what about you, Kenneth? Do you have anything else up your sleeve when it comes to Stripe apps that you want to talk about?
Yeah, like Stripe sessions is around the corner. So we're doing Stripe sessions in May, and I cannot say too much detail, but really we are working on ways for all you app developers out there to really get more opportunity and get more distribution and get in front of more users. Mm-hmm. So really like tune in for Stripe sessions in May, and then you can get all the latest on what we're working on for apps.
Awesome. So folks, definitely make sure you take a look out for Stripe sessions. That's going to be coming soon. And Suk, I think there's a question here for you in the chat really quick. I'm going to pull it up. Soothing Sounds of Sympathy. I don't know why. I just love that YouTube name. I just love saying it. Anyway, for this person on YouTube, where can I get the pre-order link? And I'm guessing they're talking about the pre-order link for your course.
Yeah, the URL is sasbase.dev/courses/Stripe apps. There it is right there. Yeah, you can pre-order right now. Once it's available in like I'm trying to put it out within the week. You'll have access to that.
Awesome. Sounds good. All right, folks. Well, I mean, I think this has been amazing, right? If we kind of look through and do a quick summary of everything that we've talked about, right? Like we've learned a little bit about what Stripe apps are. We've talked about the different use cases, right? Like what it looks like to build them, right? The type of skill sets and, the things that we could, use from a developer perspective to build them. We've seen Suk's example of retail store, which I think, I don't know. I still think it's the most amazing Stripe app I've personally seen, but might be a little bit biased. If I am, I apologize. But, I think it is absolutely amazing. Make sure you head over to retail.store, right? Not .com, but .store, and check out his app. Also check it out in the Stripe apps marketplace, as you can go and install that in your section too. Actually, Suk, is the code for retail is private, right? It's not on like GitHub somewhere, is it? Is this a thing
It's
that folks
not.
can do? No. Okay, I just wanted to make
No.
sure, just in
Yeah,
case.
yeah.
Okay, so you can ask him. Maybe if you ask nicely, he might show you like little bits and pieces of it, but you're not gonna get all the code, right? This is very very sensitive IP, right? Like this is not for everybody's eyes. But definitely appreciate you showing us that. And then Kenneth also showed us tons of other apps like the MailChimp app or like the Payment Links app too that folks will start making use of today. So I definitely recommend heading over to the docs. Make sure that you take a look at how to get started with Stripe apps. Let us know what type of apps that you build, right? Like Kenneth had mentioned a little bit earlier. I'm going to try and pull up the link again as we're talking about it because I believe in repetition. Head over to this URL below. If you build something cool, let us know. If you have an issue, let us know. If you have some feedback, let us know, right? I think we only get better, as we keep our communication lines open, we keep talking about it. So definitely let us know. What are some of the things you're building? Head over to our Discord channel too, and feel free to ask folks about, for feedback, anything of the sort. But with that being said, thank you all for watching. This has been another episode of Stripe Dev Chats. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about Stripe apps, and we're absolutely love to see what you guys build in the future. But with that being said, goodbye, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, everybody.
Bye all.